Ladies and gentlemen, as we prepare for services, we'd ask that if you're carrying a cell phone, if you'll please place that in the operative position, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you this morning for a very sacred and special purpose. That is to acknowledge and to honor and to share in the life of man. So we're honored that you're here. We are live streaming, and those that are viewing from live stream, welcome you as well. Matthew John McClure, also known as Matthew, was born April 29, 1971. At the age of 40 and passed away on July 7th. Matt is preceded in death by his parents, Anne Frank and Sherry McClure, and sister Patricia. Matt is survived by his devoted wife of 27 years, Tara. 3 daughters, 3 beautiful daughters, Mackenzie, Madison, and Morgan. Older sister and brothers, Sharon, Bob, David, and Sherry, Mark, and Amy. And many beloved extended family members in Pennsylvania and New England. Matt was born in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and relocated to Phoenix with his family in 1983. Throughout his childhood, Matt enjoyed many sports, including gymnastics, pole vaulting. He continued his education at Arizona State University, earning both a bachelor's degree in aeronautical engineering and MBA, and spent over 24 years as a highly respected mechanical engineer for Honeywell Aerospace. He was known as his own personal rocket scientist. How cool is that? And recently retired to pursue entrepreneurial endeavors. He had a sense of adventure and enjoyed drives on his motorcycle, flying airplanes, hiking Camelback Mountain with his wife, running in the annual Pat Tillman run, snowboarding with his girls, attending Diamondback games, ziplining with his family in Hawaii, and vacationing with friends in Rocky Point. Most of all, Matt enjoyed time with his family and was a cheerleader dad, literally. He attended each girls' competitions through the years, but was always on top of their studies, and enjoyed every date night possible with his wife. His cherished friends and family will miss him greatly, and there's no doubt in that. Reading his obituary and kind of preparing for today, I realized that this man has accomplished so much. He's an accomplished individual. But throughout, you see his family is critically important to him. Regardless of everything he's obtained and succeeded in, family was central to him. That's so important in today's world. So I'm honored to be here. My name is Christian. I own a doctor here at home. Oftentimes I'm asked to conduct services such as this, and I'm honored to be here to help Aaron and her family through this. In my course of time, I've come to determine that there are really three reasons that we gather in times like this. People have asked me for years, why do we do this? And I really determined there's three reasons. The first is to acknowledge and celebrate life lived. I'm sure on a Thursday morning, there's 100 places you'd rather be than here. And I understand that, and I agree with that. But you're here because Matt personally touched you in one way or another. And I'm certain that if we went back through Matt's life and polled everybody and sequestered them here, who he had positively influenced, this room wouldn't be big enough. The stadium probably wouldn't be big enough. It's not the size of the crowd that matters, but it's what we do here that matters. And that's why you're here. We're honored that you're here and taking the time to be here. That's one of the main reasons we gather, is to show that support. We also honor and celebrate him in different ways. As you came in, you saw the table prepared by family of things that were important, that or he enjoyed. A bottle of wine, you have Reese's Pieces, Reese's Cups, you have signs of his life, things that he enjoyed, so people can now attach themselves to that and see that and maybe learn some things about Matt, but also reflect great memories of Matt. We do that in the spoken word. There's going to be people who speak today to remind us about Matt and his memories. We do that in video, where John has prepared a video kind of capturing Matt's life. So we do that in various ways. So that's our purpose. We're going to watch the video, and then we're going to open up eventually to open mic. And this is a time when I announce that I hope that those of you who have a story about Matt, that you can share it. These memories are very, very important to Tara and her children. I lost my wife 3 years ago this next month to cancer, and it's amazing. I could be having a very, very bad day, and out of the blue, a co-nurse of hers will send me an email just to remind me of a story. And it could be on the worst day, and it just lightens me. It brightens my day, because I realize that my Charlie hasn't been forgotten. It doesn't bring me more pain, Tara. Nothing's going to bring you more pain. It's already here. So any word that you can give her in the months and weeks that come, please don't hesitate. Just forward it on to her. So, John, we'll go ahead and start the video now. Wow, a picture could paint 1,000 words. Just watching the video, the term carpe diem came. And I think that's how Matt lived his life, carpe diem. Seizing the moment and finding that moment. As I said, we're going to ask a couple of speakers to come forward after they have concluded their remarks. We will open the mic to those who want to share. We'd like to start with his brother Mark, followed by Mark will be his friend John.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was gonna have to go after that. So, I apologize if I can't get through it. 2 weeks ago, I didn't think in a lifetime that I would be here doing this. So you all have to apologize, or I have to apologize to you because a lot of you don't know me. And everything that you know about Matt, I'm pretty much the opposite. I'm not quiet. I'm not polite. So, again, I apologize if this offends any of you, probably the engineers. That smile, let's start with that. We finished with it, let's start with it. Well, you have to understand that was a work in progress. That wasn't something that happened overnight. That was him at 1.5, and me at 3, ramming Tonka trucks into his face. That ruined his front teeth. So he didn't have front teeth until he was maybe in first grade. The other thing that we have to realize is that I worried about him all the time growing up. From 4 years old, he was clumsy, he was awkward, he fell, and he didn't know how to put his hands down when he fell. And so he did more damage to the teeth. So again, the smile that we all love was a work in progress. So the Tonka truck that probably did the most damage was a Texaco Tonka truck. But we also traveled when he was 1 and 2 years old. And so his first words, and these are just things that I'm remembering about him, his first word was Texaco. Not mommy, not daddy, it was Texaco. So I don't know if it was the Tonka truck or if it was all the gas stations that we were stopping at. But he didn't, again, those teeth were, that smile was in making. So, and I probably should apologize to him, but when he fell, he would go into the hospital very often, and I would have to translate, because he'd go in and he didn't have the front teeth, so he'd say, I didn't see the top sign, I didn't see the top sign, and then he'd go, it's not funny, and we would all start laughing, and then he would get mad. Morgan has some of that. Like I said, he was clumsy, but he grew up. I felt like he needed me all through 8th grade, in the high school. We got into high school, he started growing up. He started to become a man. He started taking care of himself. And I started knowing that he didn't need me to always take care of him. Before high school, though, he would do things like riding a bike. Again, he was clumsy. And one time we were riding, and we went to a store, and we got some candy, and we were on our way back, and I told him to stay away from, he's getting too close to the cars. And he ran into a parked car, went right up over it. So I panicked, I left him there. I went home and told my mom that, and by the time I got there, I was out of breath, and I said, Matt, car. So she freaked, and just about then, Matt came around the corner, crying like he usually was. But I had so much fun making him laugh, too. As he grew up, he got rid of the little giggle, but he had this little giggle as a kid that was just amazing, and it just would make you laugh. And to make him laugh was one of probably the best things, and probably the why I am the way I am in some ways, that I always tried to make him laugh. In more ways than one, some of them not so good. Ever since being a kid, he was definitely designed to be an engineer. We get the Legos, and he'd get the book out, and then you have to build the Legos per spec exactly the way it was. And then I break them down, and then I make whatever I wanted to make. But it started with that. It led into brownies, which we have brownies out there. But he had to do 50 strokes or 50 mixes. And what we would do, my parents went dancing almost every night, but on Friday nights, we made brownies. We watched Dukes of Hazzard. Can't talk about that, I guess. We watched Dukes of Hazzard, and then we watched Kung Fu. And we would tear the whole living room up, and we'd karate each other and hit each other, but we'd clean it all up before my parents would get home. But he would make the brownies, and he had to do 50 strokes. And it was so much fun messing with him, how many he got. And then he'd go, or I'd do one more. I'd grab it, and I'd do one more. Just ruin it! And then he'd get all sad. I had to do 50 strokes, because that's what he's trying to say. Working on cars later on in life, he did a lot on his own, which I'm so proud of that he was doing that. But growing up, he wouldn't work on cars and he would lay on the couch. And my dad would ask, well, what are you going to do if your car breaks down? And he goes, Mark will fix it. Because Mark fixes everything. That's what Mark does. He can put things together and he can make things work. And that's what I was kind of designed to do. But even sports, he had an engineering mind. Baseball, it's not mathematically possible to hit a baseball. The man hit a baseball as good as anybody. Football, he was the quarterback. Pole vaulting. He excelled at everything that he did. And this is as he's growing up. He continued to excel. He continued to get better. He always got better and better and better. We did gymnastics together. We did so many sports together. We pole vault together, which obviously is not something I should have been doing. But, so again, along the lines of engineer, a couple years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Matt came to me and said, hey, do you mind if I put Dad's thermostat in? Because that's what I do. I fix things. And Dad needed a new thermostat. Matt wanted to take it on. And he came to me and I was so humbled that he actually even asked me. Because usually at that point in life, he never asked me for help. Matt was one that did not ask anybody for help. But he asked me for help that time, and I was so honored. And I said, absolutely, you can do it, and I'll be there in case something goes wrong. So it's a 30-minute job that took 2 to 3 hours, but he got it done. And you know what? It was perfect. And that's what Matt did. When he did a project, he did it perfect. I also knew he was going to be an engineer because anything he did, he took forever to do. Recently, he was so successful at Honeywell. He was so successful at so many things. But recently, he asked us to help him with the venture he was going into, the new business. And again, I was so humbled. I was so excited, By the way, I'm not the younger brother. I know people think that, but because of my looks, but I'm definitely the older brother. But he never called me for help, but on this he called me for help and asked about running a business and asked for help, and I was so humbled. And I probably talked to him more this year than I talked to him in the last couple years. Just because they moved south, we moved north, we see each other on holidays, but man, I wish I would spend more time. In a couple of weeks, as you were saying, it's going to get rougher for all of us. We need to reach out to Tara and the girls. We got to make sure that they're okay. And we got to reach out to our other loved ones and make sure that they're okay. But if we learned anything from this, spend time with those that you love. as Amy and I say, life is short, so are we. So, again, I apologize, it's just who I am. Hang on, I'm trying to read this. I'm usually not good with notes, but I told you I fix things. It's what I do. I was designed to fix things. I fix things. Amy and I fix things. That's what we do. If there's a problem, we fix it. I can't fix this. I can't fix this. And it drives me nuts that I can't fix it. But what I can do is I can be there for Tara and the girls. It's amazing how God works and brings things around. So I wrote this last night about Tara. I said, Tara, you made Matthew a much better person. Tara came in this morning and handed me this, and she wanted me to read this. That's what I wrote last night. And if you don't think that Tara made Matt a better person, this is what Matt wrote when he graduated with his MBA. Oh boy, I hope I can read it. Your support gave me the strength to succeed. Your sacrifice fulfilled my every need. Inspiration created by you, when long nights alone should have made you blue. You raised 2 kids and bared abort number 3 while doing the shopping and taking care of me. When I called to say I wouldn't be home, you accepted it without a word or a moan. I thought all of this could not be enough. You get prettier and prettier while being so tough. Your eyes still sparkle, your smile is bright, and your body and your hair continue to delight. The touch of your hand, I know it's getting pretty bad. That's as bad as it gets. Well, yeah, that a little bit. The touch of your hand on the back of my neck still sends tingles through my body like the day we first met. But the thing I desire, live for, and treasure is your love that bonds our little family together. And if it's not obvious yet, then let me be clear. I love you always and forever, my dear. So Matt, you made Matt a better person. Mackenzie, you came along and you made Matt a man. He had to grow up really quick then. Marty and Maddie, you completed it with making him the father that he became to be. We lost a friend, we lost a brother, we lost a father, and most of all, we lost a husband. He will ever be remembered by us. He will always be remembered with a smile that he had. I'm honored to be able to speak at his funeral, and I appreciate all of you coming and honoring his life. He accomplished so much in such a short time, and he really became a man that I always worried about him when I never had to. Thank you.
I'm not sure how I'm going to call that. Because I'm, that's me.
I got one more thing. I'm sorry. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Office Space. That's my red staple. But I know at least 2 other Honeywell employees that took staplers from Honeywell when they left.
Yeah, got his EID on it, yeah. So, thank you, Mark. That was very inspiring, and it's going to make it harder for me to get through this. I've been trying to be brave through all of this. Matt, he is my friend. He is my friend. My God has mercy. He's merciful and just, and I know that He is with him. He was a loving father. He was a loving friend to all of us. He was a wonderful husband. And I know that my God will have mercy on him. One of the first things I want to say is that because of this COVID-19, that if it wasn't for that this room would be filled, the next room would be filled, the street would be filled, because there's so many people that Matt touched at Honeywell, at least, and I know. The people that worked for Matt as a manager loved him. And so I felt compelled that we had to have a live stream, that there was going to be people that were going to not be able to be here. And I wanted people to feel the energy that is going on now. So Matt and I first met. He was an intern. We met at a bar, and either it was the Vine or it was Native New Yorker. I don't quite remember. But I do remember that there was another engineer there named Jonathan Hager, and he was working with Matt, and he said, he's our intern, kind of a ruffian. He got in a fight the other day. And so I was like, okay, so I didn't know this guy, and he's a young kid. So, he comes up, and I see, and his face is all, just bludgeoned. So I'm just like, okay, well, nice, and I'm talking with John, but I'm thinking to myself, it's like, okay, here's this young guy, seems nice, but I guess, he couldn't control himself, he got in a fight, so he must be some sort of a cocky kid. So, I don't know, and after that, I didn't really see him. He was an intern, he was working with Lou Flam and Bill Reed at that time, and so on, and that was what I saw, and that's how we first met. But then we crossed paths again after he had become an engineer working in the pneumatic controls product line, where I was at as well, and proudly say that I'm still a valve guy. So we crossed paths, and we were working on a program called the Dornier 728, and I'm wearing the tie that says the Dornier 728, and Lou got us these ties, and I'm not sure if Matt kept his tie, but if he didn't, shame on him. So we were merged together, and Lou was our program manager at that time. Lou Flam was our program manager, and Lou had an influence on Matt. One of the things Lou would say, and God bless you, Lou, is that he would say, he goes, you want to dress for the job that you want, not the job that you had. And that stuck with Matt, because Matt always dressed well after that. And I didn't. I didn't follow me on that, Lou. I didn't follow on that. So we crossed paths, and we were working on the Dornier 728. I was a little bit older, and I had a little bit more experience at that time, so I was kind of the lead engineer, so I got to do the hard part, the bleed system, where Matt got the environmental control system. But I got to go to Germany and do basically visit with the customer, and at that time there was the new program manager, Stuart DeKnight, and it was myself, Stuart DeKnight, and gentleman named Mike Boards, and Mike is a rock. Mike is this guy he's just a rock. And we get to the rental car, and I'm driving, I'm not sure why. Stuart's in the back seat, he's got his newspaper, and Mike's in the passenger seat, and so now I'm trying to get the car out, and I get the car out, but I can't find reverse. We're in Germany, and I cannot find reverse. I can't figure out reverse. We're struggling, and look in the glove box. Okay, yes, it's all in German. Okay, that's not going to help us. Okay, so Mike, get up, push the car backwards. Okay, so we're in the car. Stuart's in the back with his newspaper, sitting there like that. He never put it down. And Mike gets out and pushes the car backwards. Okay, I go forward. Mike pushes it back. Go forward again, and finally we get out of the parking lot. And you can see all these German people are going, what is going on? What is happening here? So we told that story, but when we got back, Matt, and it's interesting, so Mark, the poem that was for Tara on his bachelor's, or his master's, I didn't realize that, but when we got back, Matt had made this Dr. Seuss picture for us, okay? And it says, we like our bike. It's made for three. Our Mike sits up in back, you see. We like our Mike, and this is why Mike does all the work when the hills get high. Things could be worse. What if we couldn't find reverse? This was plastered all over the office when we came back, and that was Matt's humor. And I did appreciate Matt's humor very much. We worked together for 6. We sat together for 4 years, and so this kind of humor, and this is a story that I remember the most, is that, so Micah Abel at that time was a young engineer, and I know he would walk the halls, and he was near where Matt and I would sit, and I'm sitting working, and so we're at our tables, so he's over here, I'm over here, and we're not actually looking at each other, but the phone rings, and I look down, and that's the time when we had ID, and it's Matt McClure. So I just pick up the phone. I said, engineering, this is John, and it's Matt. He goes, this is Matt. What do you think about going to lunch? He goes, you want to go to Chipotle? And I said, yeah, Chipotle sounds good. And so he's talking to me. We're right next to each other. He's talking to me on the phone. Well, Micah Abel had walked by. Okay, he's a young man, and he's, had a strange look on his face, but he told me later, so as we're talking, it's like, okay, yeah, Chipotle sounds good. So he goes, okay, where do you want to meet? Well, how about we meet in the West Lobby? Okay, we'll meet in the West Lobby. All right, I'll get my keys, I'll meet you down there. Hang up, and then we get up and we go. So ever after that, it was, okay, he's hungry for lunch, whatever, or I was hungry for lunch, I'd call him up. I said, hey, you want to go lunch? And we would do that. So Micah Abel, the younger man, he remembered that, and he said he walked by and he saw that we were talking to each other, explaining lunch, and he said, I want to work in this group. So Matt was good with that. I liked his humor. Once I got to know Matt, as a friend, and my friend Todd Garrett and other friends know, when they have a quirk, I exploit it. And so one of the things that Matt had, I would say something strange to him, like, hey, I think your hairline's receding. And he would go, huh? He would do that, knock his head and go, huh? Like that. And then it was a quirk of his, and he couldn't shake it. And so every time I would ask him something, he would go, huh? And we would laugh. And he would just like, you got me again. And it would just, he could not get over that quirk. And so every time I think about it, it's like, huh? Like when I was working on his car, and I said, your struts are just really bad, man. And I said, we got to work on this. Huh? Matt was always kind. He was always gentle. He was a gentleman. never angry. I never saw him angry. I saw him upset a few times. And Tara, he was going through some medical issues and so on, and he was scared. And he lashed out at me a couple times because I was trying to help. But he was trying to emphasize that you don't quite understand, and thank God at that point I didn't, and so on. But so there was one time Ken Roberts, myself, and Matt. We were close for a short period of time when we were growing up, and so on. We decided to go to Rock Bottom because Matt wanted to go to Rock Bottom Brewery, and he wanted to try the samplers, all 12. So we went there, and we were going to go see a movie. The movie we were going to go see was We Were Soldiers Once and Young. So it's a Vietnam movie. It's intense. We have our beers. I saved the lager for last because I knew that would taste okay, and the rest of them gave me a stomachache. So we walked to the theater, and Matt has to go to the bathroom, and so Kenny and I, we've got our stuff, and we're going to go into the theater 18. So we go into the theater, and Kenny and I were like, okay, the movie's already started. That's kind of weird. So it's like, okay, so we sit down. Now remember, we've had some drinks, okay? So we sit down, and me and Kenny were talking to each other. It's like, I'm not sure. Is this right? Is this the right movie? Are we in the right theater? I don't know. What about Matt? Well, let's just wait for Matt. Meanwhile, people are going, shh, because it was the most important scene, the most intense scene after the battle. So we're sitting there, we're talking to each other again. Finally, the guy goes, shut up. So it's like, okay, well, shut up. All right. So here comes Matt. He's got his coat. Comes in and goes, what's going on? And finally, the guy behind us, that's it. And he throws his Coke right on Matt. And poor Matt's going, what did I do? And there was a little bit of a tussle, but it was a big misunderstanding. They had given us the wrong tickets and so on. But poor Matt, but he never angered. He didn't get angry. He just goes, I don't know what I did. What was the problem? Why did that guy do that? And of course, that was a big misunderstanding. So as me and Matt, as we got to know each other more, we grew closer. At the time that I knew him, we were raising families. We both were single income parents. We talked a lot about the pressures of life, the pressures of raising a family, the pressures of work through various layoffs, job security, job insecurity, and so on, and what we would do. And we leaned on each other a lot, and we got close. We talked about being parents and what it was as far as raising our families on a single income, where we saw all around us that everybody else had all this other stuff. And here we are, we're single income, not making a whole lot as young engineers, but we knew what was important, and Matt knew that his family was important. And he knew that Tara's job, as I knew, was more important than what I did. My wife was raising our kids. Tara was raising their kids. And that was important to the both of us. Matt, and whoever comes up and says this is going to say it over and over, Matt loved his family. He talked about his family constantly. He worried about Mackenzie, we talked about what it's like to deal with a teenage daughter. I've never done this before. Matt either. So he was ahead of me with that because his daughter was older than my daughter. So, but I had an older son, so we were equally yoked in that way, and we helped each other. We became close. Now, there's some things that I hear people say at the end of their lives or whatever. It says, I have no regrets. Well, I have a regret. Is that as life continues on, Matt, after Dorney 728 had finished up, Matt decided, okay, he needed to move out of the valve group to go work in the space and missile group because there was opportunity for him. There was opportunity for him to be a lead engineer and he was a good engineer. He learned from the best. Okay? He was a good engineer. And honestly, he learned from so many talented people in the pneumatic controls product line. I think about Paul Banta, Todd Garrett, Joel Lebenz, just wonderful engineers with a wonderful demeanor, and Matt leaned on them. And so did I, Ron Lewis as well. But again, my regret is moving on. So Matt moved into the space group. I'm in the valve group, so we're not sitting together anymore. So now we're separated. But, you know, we tried to keep in touch, and we would still have family outings. But in 2005, he ended up getting, I think he ended up getting a manager job. And in 2006, I became enveloped in a very difficult program called A350, which enveloped my life. And being a manager and caring for his employees, which was huge for Matt, is making sure his employees were happy and satisfied and being nurtured. That enveloped him. So through life, we grew apart. And I would see him in the hallway with that smile, which every time you saw him in the hallway, he was always smiling. You would see him, and if you went into his office, he made you feel as though you were the most important thing. Even though he was busy, he would take time to talk with you. I told him I missed his friendship. I said, I miss what we had, you know, and we tried, but life was just evolving. The smile, so every time when I was making this video and I was telling Shane this, is that the ending was the hardest for me. I saw it so many times, excuse me, because of the editing process and so on. But I saw it so many times, and every time I saw it, it crushed me because I missed that smile. I love that man. So we look at his life. One thing that I want to say is that as he moved on, yes, we weren't as close as we were, but he went on to bless other people. People I don't even know, Ramon and Encinas. I know he went on to bless Shane, Ed Dismukes. He went on to bless a whole other set of people that he wouldn't have if he had stayed in pneumatic controls. And so, even though I lost some closeness with Matt, I know others gained and were enriched by him. So his life, you know, he was a pilot. His dad was the one who inspired him to get his pilot's license. Matt was excited about it, nervous and so on, but it was a big accomplishment for him, being a pilot. And he excelled at it, and he loved it. The one thing that I didn't agree with is when he bought the motorcycle, because I'm very risk averse. So even though I go to the dunes and I go 100 miles an hour on the sand, that's on the sand. But on the motorcycle, I always was worried about him because, of course, you can be the best rider, but you're always worried about the other person and so on. Matt had a patent. He was involved in a patent, an invention. And there was another engineer, brilliant engineer that I looked up to, and he's retired now, is Steve Abel. And Matt and Steve collaborated on a patent. And this is typical engineering discussion here, okay? Get ready. So the patent is a fluid accumulator. It's a fluid accumulator includes a tank, a piston, and a valve. Sounds good. The piston is movable, disposed within the tank, and divides the tank volume into a first fluid volume and a second fluid volume. The valve is coupled to the tank and includes a valve body, a valve element, a valve spring, a piston contact element, and a load limiter. Sounds like a transmission of some kind. The valve element is disposed within the valve body and is movable between an open position and a closed position. Duh. Okay, the valve spring has first spring constant, and supplies a force to the valve element that urges the valve element to move towards the open position. Okay, this is never going to work, guys. I don't know what happened. How did he get a patent on this? This will never work. But so it was another one of the achievements that he had. Matt was talking to his colleagues and people that I really didn't know that well. That's what they talked about, him being an excellent engineer. Again, I credit it to the experience that he had in pneumatic controls. So one last story. So we had a family function, and it was over at Matt's house. And those of you that know me, I have a back problem. Every once in a while, I might, turn the ignition on. Oh God, my back will go into spasms. And it was a party, and I can't remember which party it was. It was a birthday party for one of the girls or something like that. But, I had to go, and I was in pain. I could barely walk. And when I was at the house, I had to keep the pressure off of my back by holding onto the island. And so Matt was just like, look at me, he goes, are you okay? He's like, no. I said, well, my back hurts. And he goes, I got some medicine for you, so. So I don't want to know what this is. For those that you don't, one of Matt's favorite drinks, and it started from his dad, because when his mom passed away, we had Manhattans that day, okay? So he mixes up something for me, and this is not the right glass, but it is ASU. It's got the strainer in it, like that. And he poured it for me. He goes, here, try this. This will help you. So I was like, okay. So I want to do a virtual, for those folks that are online and for everybody here, I would like to do a virtual toast to my good friend Beth, that I will miss very much. I loved him. I loved him very much. He knew that. So I would like to have a virtual toast to my friend Matt. Man, that's bad. It's horrible. After 3 of those, I was much better. So that's what I have for now. So I would like to open it up to and one of his friends or family or whoever would like to come up and speak and say a few words about Matt. Again, I know it may be difficult, but don't be shy. I think Christian said it right, is that, we want the family to know how much Matt was loved. And so I welcome anyone to come up. I need this.
It's going to be very short because it's been really hard. Obviously, Matt and Tara are like our second parents, so. Or cousins, if you ask Morgan. But Mackenzie was only there in this moment, despite all the memories we've had with Matt and Tara, seeing them at dinner with your feet up and your glass of wine and your plates, watching TV. I remember he took Mackenzie and I think it was Kelsey or Kayla, to Fiesta Mall, but he wanted to do the public transport, so we took a bus, and I was like, why are we taking the bus? Minivan, I know it's somewhere. It's an adventure. But one of my favorite memories with both our dads was Mackenzie and I drove a day later to Mexico, mainly because we didn't want to unpack, but it was because Mackenzie worked. And the moms were somewhere on the beach, but It was Matt and my dad who greeted us. And they may have been a Mai Tai or two in by the time we got there. But they were so gosh darn happy. Like, they were so welcoming. They were so proud we were taken by federales. Or drug cartel. Who knows what was going through their minds? But it was so. It felt so good in the moment, and Mackenzie and I just like laughed it off because we were like, oh gosh, like we're dads. But you know, it's a moment we're always gonna have, and I'm really glad we had Sunday together. That was really good. Really glad you guys are over it. It's almost like Rocky Point. It's a mini Rocky Point. I look forward to, you know, everything and all the memories we'll continue to have. And I love you girls so much. And, you know, anything, we're here. And I'm so sorry.
I'm Carrie, and I work with Matt. Kind of was one of the fortunate ones to get a handoff really from John in the early 2010s. I was a program manager at Honeywell, I still am. And so I was, fortunate to get Matt and all his lead engineering experience, come to the team, and phenomenal person, engineer. And I did 4 or 5 years we worked together. I knew his routine, 5:30 a.m. gym, and I get in around 6:30 to 7. So I know he'd be in his office around 6:30 to 7. So I could see his door from my cue. But knew I could jump in there pretty much almost every morning, whether it was work related, and always turned family related, as great little Gary. Just love you guys so much. And just a lot of random things there. I mean, I always knew the first day of the kid's school because Matt was on vacation that day. I think it was Mai Tai's drinking the pool, and I was like, let's get it. First day of school for the kids. That's that year. I'm gonna be harassed today. But as John alluded to, I mean, never. I was thinking about that the last couple of days. Like, did Matt did he ever get upset? And I'm like, and then did I ever get upset? It's like there was never that vibe. It was like no matter even from a work standpoint with the stress related things. Never. If you were, you walk in like you said with a smile. Very even keeled, very kind. Wonderful person to work with. And the rock bottom story made me think about too. The one engine, rocket engine picture, I believe that was in front of Aerojet Rocketdyne out in California. We fly to Burbank for one of our customer meetings out there several times. And I know it was like probably our first trip out there, so you scheduled a little bit longer day. And so we finished up at a reasonable time, so we had time. There were 4 of us, I can't remember who was with us. But, so I was driving, Matt was navigating. And so we had time, we're like, let's get something to eat before head out to the airport. We're like, yeah, let's do that, but something close to the airport. And so he's looking, he's like, here you go, salsa and beer. I'm like, okay, that sounds great. We'll go salsa beer and head to the airport. And it was like 5 minutes from the airport. Of course, you get near the airports and you get a little bit more questionable neighborhoods. And it was winter months, so after 4:30 it was dark. And so I remember we're driving down. I'm driving down. Just, get off the exit ramp where you're like, okay. Matt, you sure? But yeah, let's do this. I think it's going to be good. It's got good ratings, good reviews. Okay. And then so I'm looking at two guys in the back. Hey, what do you guys think? Pretty quiet. And yeah, we're just driving by, and then we see the place, and it's not getting any better. We're like, and it's dark out, and some questionable things in the streets. We're like, I don't know, man. And we'll drive by. Where are you going? Oh, I don't know. It's like, oh, we're here to do it. It says this guy couldn't meet. He's pushing. Do the U-turn, and this is where we pull in the back parking lot, and there's a security guard in the parking lot. Okay, I think it's a good thing. And so, but we went inside. Man, it was one of the best little, actually it was a decent sized Mexican restaurant called Salsa here, and so that became a staple for us every time, and when, half a dozen trips, maybe 6 to 8 trips in Burbank over a couple of years, and it was like, okay, we gotta make enough time so we can hit Salsa here before we head out, right? But yeah, he'd get locked on, boy, that was it, we're going. And no, that was great. Yeah, definitely this love talking, the skiing, the snowboard. I'm a skier, obviously snowboard with the girls. And he loved talking about that, pictures. I saw a couple here today and up there just last year. And I did share one of the stories online, which I know most of the family's familiar with, when the ski went numb, when he finally went skiing again. You can read that one on his virtual wall. I put that out there if you're not familiar with that, but it's like, man, Dad, you could have stopped at lunch at least, right? No, gotta go, gotta get the full day. I know I jumped ahead on you, sorry. But yeah, just incredible human being, and just so many good memories. Definitely miss him. Thank you, John, for this. This is very good video today. Lord help with that, with pictures and. The brownies, was 50 stroke or 51 stroke brownies?
Everyone, Kevin and Joni French were really good friends. We took care of the girls and adopted each other's families and got them going.
What can we tell you about Matt that Eleanor loved his family? We do anything for them. He loved camelback. He liked hiking on camelback with Tara very early on Saturday morning.
Surely.
As well as snowboarding with the girls, just to name a few of his activities. He enjoyed his family weather, he's standing outdoors, on the beaches or in the mountains. We've known Matt and Tara and the girls for 20 plus years. Our kids all went to school together. And, I don't know, Joni's got a fun fact to tell you all.
Okay, so Morgie came on, Tara was pregnant with Morgie, and she was, I kept saying, how you doing today? How you doing? She was doing today. And we're like, well, maybe, she's like, you better get Matt home. I'm like, okay. So Matt comes home, and she's like, she's really starting the contractions, so she's and Matt comes in, he's like, okay, give me a few minutes. Okay. Surely he's gonna just race in, change out of his Honeywell dress clothes, and oh no. It's like time's a ticking by. We're just, okay, Tara, what's he doing? Just, I don't know. Yeah, he kind of has this routine. Okay. Matt, are you about ready? Because she's got to go. She's going to have the baby now. I said, yep, I'll be there in a second. So we laughed because we were like, is Morgan going to be born at home? Am I going to be delivering Morgan? But that was just we'd love to tease him a little bit about that one. That was a fun memory there.
Matt was a great family man, and no matter what was going on with work, he always had time to spend, made sure he had time to spend with Tara and his girls. His girls were his everything. We got to know Matt more and more with our annual trips to Rocky Point. This is the one time we could get Matt to forget about work for 4 or 5 days, maybe a week, maybe a week and a half. Try to get him relaxed. We'd be on the beach from sunrise to sunset. Matt would make the Mai Tais, and they were never just thrown together. He just never grabbed a bottle here and a bottle there. Everything was shot, everything was measured. Everything was just perfect. And I think he even had a spreadsheet. You know, that was his engineering background. So, Tara and Johnny, they always try to throw him off. Every year they bring bigger and bigger glasses. We start here, and here. So, like Matt, being Matt, he's always recalculating it, just like GPS, recalculating. His Mai Tais were very good, and they kept us on the beach most of the day.
And a very happy one. They do.
And then he's also in charge of the breakfast. I do the cleanup, he'd do the breakfast, and it's his famous breakfast burritos and cinnamon French toast. So, you know, we just let Matt go, and I say, hey Matt, what can I help you with? Why don't you do the dishes? That's okay. We had big times in Rocky Point. And he was one that we'd go lay out on the beach, but, you know, we're not ones for laying on the beach for long periods of time, so.
Well, the guys are not.
So we get out, throw the baseball, toss the football, play washers, cornhole, ladder ball. So there's always competition. We're always on the same side, trying to knock each other's shots off or whatever. But our favorite games were the ones where we could have a Mai Tai in one hand and we could throw the bag or the washer in the other hand. But our best time as a group would be when we just go dive into the infinity swimming pool at the bar. There's a swim-up bar that overlooked the beach, and you could see, all you could see was the ocean. If you're just looking just right, you could see the ocean. And we usually hit that time 1 to 3, because that's when the happy hour at the swim-up bar was.
Pattern here, isn't there?
So,
there was one time, we started as the kids got a little bit older on our Rocky Point trips. We started doing a little wrecked at the reef. And we could get Matt, and Matt was like, yeah, let's go do wrecked at the reef. And they had an 80s band, live band there. And they were there every year. And Matt would dance nonstop, jump. He didn't almost dance, he just bounce, jump. And then he spun on the floor one time. He was like break dancing. We're like, what are you doing down there? And then he just kept bouncing and dancing. He had the best time. He did not walk the next day. He literally was like, I can't move. Like, you know why? Because you were on the floor spinning around. But we really had the best of times and made the best memories in Rocky Point with Matt. And like Kevin said, it was so fun to see him unwind. We would walk into that condo when we get there. And, well, let me back up a little bit. Matt being Matt, he made sure that we all, because we would caravan down, but we all had the walkie-talkies. Because once you get past the border, you can't really use the cell phones so much. And so we had the walkie-talkies, and we'd communicate to the cars. And so he'd be in the lead, or we'd be in the lead, but he'd be like, we get up to where you could see the condos in the distance, and we knew we were so close. And I'm like, I can see him, and he'd radio back, and he just made sure we were safe getting there and getting home with those walkie-talkies. But we would get into that condo, and the first thing he would do is he'd walk over, he'd open up those sliding glass doors, walk out onto that balcony, and just go, yes, I'm here. And you could just totally see the stress and the stress leaving, the relaxation starting, and then we unloaded and hit the beach. So.
one of the stories you'll never live down is always a famous purchase. I think we saw it out on the table. His dolphin purchase. And, we purchased that dolphin statue out on the beach from a vendor, and he just had to have it that day.
Okay, several Mai Tais in, please.
And being the good friend that I was able to help him with the purchase. So he purchased it, and I don't know what it was. It was either the heat or maybe the little Mai Tai help, but your perception of a great art piece it's the best in you. He never lived that story down. That dolphin statue.
I can't remember it the next morning. Look at what you bought. It's like, what? You had to have it. Tara and I had gone off. It was Kevin and Matt, and they came back. And when we saw them, we had gone up to the condo, and we had come back down, and he was so proud. He was so proud of his statue of those dolphins.
As much fun as we had together, we could always count on Matt to help us out, no matter how busy he was. He would always just drop of the hat and come over and help me. You know, so he helped me out of a jam more than once or twice. Then we would get together. I said, "Hey Matt, what have you been working on? Oh, I did this. I built these barn doors for the house. I moved the shed that I just built from one end of the house to the other house." Why didn't you give me a call? Oh, I didn't want to bother you. But the minute you need something, he'd be over. Had issue with the air handler in the attic, just got a new air handler and AC unit installed. And next morning I wake up in the water running down the den wall into one of our walls. And it's like, oh, I tried to figure it out, So I called Matt, and Matt got up and they came with all his tools, called up in the attic. Got a hold of Mark. Got a hold of Mark there. We did some piping and welded the drain for the pan. So never had it together again.
Yeah, it's like having an engineer and an air conditioner taking care of your unit. You know it'll get done right.
Like Kelsey said, we were lucky enough to spend the last Sunday, 4th of July weekend with the whole family. And it was just, Kelsey goes, "Hey, I think Mackenzie's coming over." So Mackenzie's coming over, and we played everybody else over. So just like that, we all got together and hung out, and it was one of the best times we had together, even though it was a rocky point. We had a great time. And thanks to our oldest daughters, they showed us the fine rules of beer pong and play. There's a lot of rules to that game. If you keep drinking, I don't know how you can remember all that. And one of the girls kept going, "Well, that's what the National Beer Pong Association says." And there's some terms that were going like, our little start of the town.
Oh my gosh, don't say that.
I don't know whose face got better, either Matt's or mine. But it was a great time. Matt was one of our best friends who created this. Tara McKenzie, Addison Morgan, if you need anything, we're here for you. In closing, Matt, you spend your time flying overhead, relaxing on the sandiest beaches, swimming in the clearest blue water, hiking the greatest trails, and snowboarding the toughest lifetime sports.
I didn't quite finish my story about the meeting Matt. He was all beat up, right? Okay. So, right? Well, so I was thinking again that he was some sort of punk, whatever. But as I got to know him later on, I told him, I said, when I first met you, I didn't like you because obviously you couldn't control your temper, blah blah blah. And he goes, huh? And so I said, yeah. I go, you were in a fight and so on. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, I met you and your face was all messed up. And he goes, no, it was a mountain bike accident coming down. He goes, I left most of my face and my teeth on South Mountain. I said, that all makes sense. And of course, he didn't put his hands down. That's what he didn't put his hands down.
I'm Dina Vasquez, I'm John's wife. And first time we met them was we were at fireworks and Kenzie was just little. And I think we had Aaron. I'm not sure if we had Marissa yet, Aaron said, but we were watching fireworks and that's the first time I had met them. And then John would be like, hey, they want to get together. And so we had we had the Roberts and us, and they'd come over, we had tamale parties, or we'd have swimming, and there was one picture of Matt that he was standing there and he had his tongue out, and that was actually at our house. And if you get a closer look, he had guacamole on his showing John his guacamole. But I can just remember in the pool, Matt loved, you saw him on Devil's Bridge there doing a handstand. He would do that on the rocks. We had rocks that are in our pool. He would stand on those and then fall into the pool, or he'd do a flip off of them. And I would just sit up pouting. Everyone was just like, it's not that deep, it's not that deep. But he pulled it off, and being the gym said he was. And being over, I have to finish the story with John, the Manhattans. He would always say that, those are disgusting. I don't know how they drink those. But when he was there that night, what he failed to say is, we basically had to pour John into the car. Because Matt was, he's like, yeah, here's another one. And he's like, okay, you have another one of those. But we had some, great memories with you guys and a lot of fun times with the girls, dressing John up, getting them, after he's had a few, putting his hair in clips and all this. So we just had some good times with them. But that's why you guys to know that we had some great memories with you and Matt, and like he says, the smile is $1 million smile, and always sweet and always gentle and handsome. We'll miss him.
So now as we move forward, Tara and the girls are on a new journey, one that they didn't expect, one that they don't want, but that's the way life is sometimes. So for you and I, it's important that the memories that we hold and the memories that we remember, we must share them with Tara and the girls. They're like nuggets of gold that will pay dividends to them as they start their journey this week, this couple weeks, months, and years to come. These nuggets of gold will be very, very important to them. We live in a world today that communication is so easy. A simple text, an email. It may not be as personal as you may want it, but it's something, and I encourage you to do that. As I said, there's 3 reasons that we gather. The second reason, we have celebrated him, and we have remembered, and we have honored him in so many ways. There's a poem I like to use, and it's entitled, We Remember Them. I'm going to place Matt's name in because I think it's relevant. It goes like this. At the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember Matt. At the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter, we remember Matt. At the opening of the buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember Matt. At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of summer, we remember Matt. At the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember Matt. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember Matt. As long as we live, he too shall live, for he is part of us as we remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember Matt. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember Matt. When we have joy and we crave charity, we remember Matt. When we have decisions that are based on his, we remember Matt. When we have achievements that are based on his, we remember Matt. For as long as we live, he too shall live, for he is part of us as we remember him. That is critically important. As I've learned firsthand, memories are critically important. The second reason we gather is to mourn with those who mourn, and that is incredibly important as well. You're here to lend a shoulder to Tara and her daughters, and to to help support them and to show that support and love. We're taught that in a specific memory of the Bible where Christ is teaching and working in Bethany, and he gets word that his best friend Lazarus is ill and not doing well. And he lives in Judea. It's a 20-mile walk between Bethany and Judea. And Christ, when he gets the word, the apostle says, should we not go to him? And Jesus says, no, Lazarus sleepeth. Because he knew that Lazarus had already died. So he tarried in Bethany for 2 additional days, and on the second day he made his way to Judea. Upon arrival at the gate, after a 3-day walk, now Lazarus has now been dead for 4 days. He makes it to the gate, and he's met by Mary and Martha, and they have a conversation about eternal life. It's an important discussion, but what I learned in the death of my wife was when Christ went to the tomb, and that's what I like to go to, because this, Tara, brought me so much peace. And it's a story that I've heard 100 times, but I never understood the portion of the tomb like I do now. And it came as an epiphany. It came from a message came to me. And it's this. When Christ went to the tomb, he looked out and he saw the multitude, how they were mourning. And the Bible says, it's the shortest verse in the Bible, it says, and Jesus wept. Prior to my wife dying, I had never understood what weeping means. Today I do. Terry, you know what it means. It's that deep pain. Your heart is physically broken and you can't fix it. And no matter what you do, that pain never really goes away. And that's that deep pain. But my question is this. If Christ knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the grave, and I believe he did, because as he entered the tomb, he looked heavenward and thanked God for the opportunity to show the power. He knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead, so why did he weep? This is what I learned. Christ knew that to be absent from the body was to be present with God. Lazarus is his friend. He knows Lazarus at that moment was in the presence of God, in beauty, in comfort, and in everything that he so desired. But in that moment, he's going to take him from God once again, bring him back into a broken world where he's going to have to experience death and pain and all that stuff all over again. And therein is the answer. And Jesus wept. He was weeping for Lazarus. He wasn't weeping for those who were mourning. He understood. He was weeping for his friend who was taken in front of that place. And when I realized that, Tara, my concern for Charlie was almost solved, because I realized as much as I want her here, as much as you want Matt here, we can never understand or comprehend the peace therein. And we wouldn't want them back. As much as we do, we wouldn't want them coming back. And I know that. Your presence here today is proof of love for Matt and for Tara and children, and that's why we're here, is to mourn with them. Our third and final reason that we gather is to acknowledge a higher power. It says that all things have purpose. We may not understand, and that's okay. We don't have to understand why things happen. We have to learn to accept and move on and understand that regardless of what happens, there is a power, a higher power, that has control and that loves us. I learned this firsthand shortly after my wife died. It was a very fast cancer issue, 30 days it took. We had gone on a cruise several months before, and everything was fine. And after her funeral, after the service were done, I decided I was going to get away and turn my head. I had just to move away for a little while, and I went to Kansas City. My son's an Apache pilot, so I went to there to visit him and my 4 grandkids. As I got to the airport here in Phoenix, I got to the gate and I realized that I was in the very same gate that Charlie and I were in just once before, when life was good. And now I'm all alone. The wave of grief hit me so hard and so deeply that at times I couldn't breathe. I was sobbing. All I had was my backpack and I was hunkered down behind it, trying not to be seen. I didn't want to cause a stir. I didn't want attention. I was just trying to survive. Unbeknownst to me, a man had come and sat next to me. I didn't realize it, I didn't feel it, but I felt soon the weight of a hand on the back of my neck. I looked up, startled, because I was traveling alone, and I looked at this man. Scraggly gray hair, scraggly gray beard, leather vest with all the POW patches on it. You know who I'm talking about. His eyes were blue as blue and clear, and he looked at me as if he could see right through me. And he simply asked, "Sir, can I help you?" I couldn't speak. I bowed my head and tried to muster my strength, cleared my throat. Finally, I told him a story. This man put his arms around me, didn't say anything, just put his arms around me and pulled me back in my chair, forcing me to cry openly. And together he and I cried. I put my head on his shoulder and I cried. As quickly as he entered my life, he exited. His plane was called. He rose to go. I stood up with him and I gave him a hug and whispered in my ear something I'll never forget. He said, "Thank you for sharing your story. You have blessed my life. I am going home now, and I'm going to love my wife." Sorry. He left. All I know is that I got to my plane, my plane was called, I got to my seat, and I sat there and realized it dawned on me, how did my grief end? I don't remember getting better. All I know is I'm sitting on the plane, I'm perfectly fine. I'm calm, I'm ready to see my grandkids, and I realized two things, two very important things. One is that I didn't bless that man's life, he blessed mine. Secondly, God was ever present because he couldn't come to me personally, so he sent a messenger who was willing to listen. Sent him when I needed him. Tara, there are those who are in your life today, and there are those who may not be in your life today that will come to you in their own way, and they will bless you. Be mindful of that, and remember that when those times happen, it's so simple. It's God's love for you. Yes, Dr. He's more present with you now in this moment than you ever could understand. I have felt him in so many ways. I have searched for God my whole life, and I thought at times I found him, but not until then did I really understand God's personal love for me. It reminded me of a story of a pastor that had served for 50 years teaching people about God's love. When he retired, his wife suddenly passed away, leaving him now alone. The pastor, who was so familiar with God, lamented to God in prayer one night and said, "How dare you? I have taught people for 50 years about your love, and then when I retire and can be with my wife, you've taken her from me." Soon, a voice came to him and asked him, "Did you love your wife for you, or did you love your wife for her?" And to this, the pastor gave pause and thought about it, and came back and said, "Well, of course I loved her for her." The voice returned and said, "If that is true, and you know that I exist, why do you lament? You know she's with me. She's where she belongs. Now stop being selfish, rise, go forward, and follow my words." He said after that he never lamented again. He mourned and he missed her, but he never lamented. He never blamed God again because he realized that God loves him and God loves Matt. We heard today that we hope that God is merciful. God cannot be anything else than merciful. All he can do is love, and he loves Matt. He loves you. This is my firm testimony. He lives in a place that we will find as well. This concludes our services here. We are grateful for your attendance. Your time and presence here is greatly appreciated. On behalf of Tara and her family, we say go in peace. The remaining of the time you have here is yours. Feel free to mingle and gather and share those stories. And again, we thank you. Thank you very much.
So thank you for those that have joined. Video that you saw on my YouTube channel, as well as on McClure Live.